You start getting excited, motherfucker! Just pretend this movie didn't fucking happen. It's fucking trash. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all you kings and queens and everyone's in between. If you're stuck at home, because of the coronavirus and the quarantine, I'm glad you made it here today. As you can tell from the last video, maybe upped my production value a little bit with some cheap green screens and some cheap lights. But hey, I've got a campfire behind me now, so we're all having fun. So if you don't know what this is about, the videos, what I like to do is I like to tell, kind of my own telling of movies and whatever else I feel like talking about. So a yearly tradition that I have is watching the Boondock Saints movies and drinking every time the brothers are Irish. So I thought a good fun thing I could do is tell the Boondock Saints story. So not going to be as long as the Fast and the Furious movies where I did 8 movies. Took an hour and 20 minutes. I'm just going to tell the first movie for Boondock Saints. I'm going to have a little fun with it, and hope you'll enjoy me telling the story. So the movie starts out, it's got 2 brothers that, you don't know they're twins, but they're twins. So I'll go ahead and spoil that for you. They're in church, and you're hearing the story of Kenny Genovese. God, I hope I said the name right. Anyways, it's a well-known story. Woman who was attacked in a neighborhood, and nobody in the neighborhood, really did anything. So the brothers are there. They actually walk up in the middle of this sermon, and another priest in the church looks at him, and another priest's like, whoa, no, they're cool. Let them go. So they go in, they say a little prayer, they walk out, light up their cigarettes. Irish music starts playing. It's St. Patrick's Day. These 2 brothers are going to work at a meatpacking plant where they're well loved. Everybody, they're just the favorites of this meatpacking plant. Well, they get stuck with a new employee who is not very friendly and not very receptive. And they're trying to train her, and basically one of the brothers, brothers' names are Connor and Murphy McManus. So Connor he's trying to train her, and he goes, "Hey, the rule of thumb here," and she flips her shit, and she's like, "The rule of thumb?" And she tells him the history of the rule of thumb and how it was, used to be legal for men to beat their wives with a stick as long as it was no bigger than their thumb. So Connor looked at him and goes, "Well, I can't do much with that. Perhaps it should have been the rule of wrist." Well, that doesn't go over well. She winds up kicking Connor in the nethers, and Murphy just decks her. Pow! Drops her. Connor goes home. Murphy goes home. They go out later that night to a bar called McGinty's, which has a bartender who has Tourette's syndrome, known for saying, "Fuck! Random intervals." So while they're there drinking, their buddy Rocco shows up, who is actually a numbers man, package boy for the Italian mob. But he's actually a good guy, just happens to be Italian. So fast forward a little bit, everybody's drunk, night's winding down, and the owner of the bar tells him he's gonna have to close down soon because Russians are in the neighborhood buying it out. As he's telling them that, Russians show up. And they just tell everybody to leave. Cuts out, goes to the next morning. 2 Russians are on the ground dead. And, the Boston police, there's 3 of them there just trying to solve the crime. One of them goes on this whole rant about how there's a serial crusher trying to squish people to death. And he thinks it's going to turn into this whole crazy string of murders. Well, Willem Dafoe shows up as an FBI agent named Paul Smecker. And he immediately just chastises this theory. Puts in some headphones and he goes through and he kind of figures out what happened. And then they go up to the brother's room and he's like, "Okay, guys, let me tell you what happened here." So when I say they went to the brother's room, it's because this happened right outside the brother's hotel room. So it's clear that they were involved after meeting these Russians in the bar before. So you see what happens. It flashes back. This was back in when Pulp Fiction was out. So these weird time cuts were a big thing. So it goes back and we're seeing what happened after that. So they basically get into a fight with these Russian guys, and I tell you, don't go into an Irish bar and pick a fight with a bunch of drunk Irishmen. Not going to go well for you. So they beat the shit out of these Russians, and they wind up taking a bottle of alcohol and lighting one of their asses on fire. And so the next morning, when after all this happens, the Russians find the McManus brothers going to their apartment, and they're gonna basically he's going to kill Connor for lighting his ass on fire. Well, he decides in that moment that he's going to kill Murphy instead, while Connor is handcuffed to a toilet in the apartment. Well, they're twin brothers. Connor's not having that, so he pulls this toilet up, throws it over the balcony. It hits, one of the Russian mobsters down there, and then Connor jumps, from the building, and he lands on the other one. Murphy, sees it coming. He hides. Connor hits him. Murphy gets up, picks up a piece of the toilet, and beats the two Russians to death, makes sure they're dead. So it's all in self-defense. They're in the hospital, and the owner of the bar shows up at the hospital, and he's like, yeah, this FBI agent gave me your card. Fuck us! Just yelling. There's, kids with cancer in there, and they're like having to, he's just got a thing, he doesn't mean it towards you. And, he tells them, the FBI said it was self-defense. And they're like, well, how does he know that? I don't know. And they're like, well, we're going to turn ourselves in. So the story leaks to the press, that it's self-defense. And everybody knows, okay, these brothers, man, maybe they're heroes. And the cops are actually really friendly to them. And Smecker, he's like, hey, guys, it's going to be grunt police work that brings them in. Just check, do stops, whatever. Well, Greenlee, one of the police officers who came up with the serial crusher theory, he goes on this whole rant about, you're going to need to grab a potato and drag it through the town. They're scared. They're not going to come in. When he says the potato line, the two brothers show up, and they go, you'd have better luck with a beer. So they give their statement. And Paul Smecker's like, well, you're not going to be charged. But, what do you want to do? The press is outside. They said, can we stay in the jail tonight? Because they don't want their identities out in the public, right? They don't want their faces out there. So Rocco shows up, brings them their clothes. He's there. And then later that night, they wake up in the middle of the night with this powerful vision where they, both come to the same conclusion. They have to destroy that which is evil so that which is good may flourish. So I've always kind of said they became hitmen for God, essentially. So they're sitting there the next morning. They get a beep from the Russians' pager, and it's apparently the Russians' boss is in town for, the Russian mob is moving in town. So they look at the pager, they make a phone call, they find out where he is, they go in the hotel room, and then they're so stupid because they take all this money, they go to this guy who sells backroom weapons, they're arguing over what weapons they'll need, what rope they need. Connor's like, yeah, man, Charlie Bronson, he's always got rope. You'll need rope. Name one fucking thing you need the rope for. I don't know, you just need it. This goes on, and then Murphy grabs a big combat knife. He's like, is that right, Rambo? And they're arguing with each other. They both decide to just get whatever the hell they want. Well, now they're in the vents crawling through in this hotel room because, why not? Why wouldn't you crawl through the vents? Well, as they're crawling through the vents, trying to find the room, they get lost. They start fighting in the vent. One of them hits the other with a flashlight. They just get stuck, tangled. The rope that's on them winds up dropping them down from the ceiling. They hang by the rope, and then they just pull out their guns and start shooting at everybody. Take the knife, and that's how they get down. Rocco, it turns out, is on. He's actually been upgraded to a hitter, so he's there to take out the head of the Russian boss. Well, the two brothers have obviously already executed everybody. They see it's Rocco. They're like, oh, God, it's his big break. We have to fuck with him. So they pull him in, and they're like, we're going to kill you. And Rocco's like, hey, wait. They're cussing at him. Rocco's freaking out. And then they go, Rocco, he has a six-shooter. And they're like, there's 9 bodies. What are we going to do with a six-shooter? Laugh them to death? Because Rocco's nickname is the funny man. So basically they show Rocco who they are. They have a conversation that night where Rocco is like, man, you guys need to be in every major city. And there's a cat. Rocco freaks out. He's like, you know what? I'm going to take credit for this, because the brothers tell him, you have to take credit because we can't admit we did it. So Rocco's like, you're right. Smacks the table, shoots the cat. Cat's dead, splattered on the wall. Rocco looks and goes, is it dead? So then it cuts back to the FBI investigation. They walk in, they see the bodies, and they're just like, what is going on? So the theory now is that there's about to be an all-out war between the Russians and the Italian. That's where they're going. So the next morning, the brothers are talking to Rocco. They're like, look, they sent you in there with a six-shooter. Like, they probably thought you were going to at least get the boss, but then you'd be dead on the scene. There wouldn't be an investigation because you're dead. Rocco, of course, who's loyal to his employers, he's like, no, that's just not the way this works. So he calls them, later, and they're like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I'm fine. I'll just, anybody call for me? They're like, no. Okay, cool. I'll check back later. So Rocco goes into this diner, and he just executes, all these Italian guys in the diner that he knew, because they knew that he was being set up, and they were laughing about it, and they were like, oh, you did what you're supposed to do. We kept our mouth shut, so we're going to be okay. But, of course, Rocco realizes he was betrayed. So then he runs back to his apartment. He's like, pack your shit! We gotta go! And they're like, whoa, Rocco, calm down. He's like, you start getting excited, motherfucker! As he's packing an iron. Like he's just grabbing whatever shit he can grab. While his girlfriend is back. And along with her friend, and it's her cat that he had shot the night before, and she's like, hey, Rocco, what's going on? He's like, I killed your cat. And she's like, what? Why? I thought it would bring closure to our relationship. Closure. So they get into a thing, they're arguing, they finally get out of there, they leave, and then, the brothers are with Rocco in the car, and he's like, well, how do you guys decide, who we're going to kill? We should kill my old boss, Vincenzo, who's an underboss in the mob, who works directly for the mob boss, whose name is Jacobetta. And, Connor's like, well, we don't really have a system. And Rocco goes, well, me! I'm the guy! I'm the system! Like, I know everybody! Like, I know what everybody's doing in this town. I've been, affiliated with this organization. So the brothers go, okay, that makes sense. So that night, remember there's already been the murder in the morning in the diner from Rocco. That night they go to a strip club and they kill, Vincenzo. Well, as they're there, they also see two more guys on this, that they know just from around town that are just bad guys. You don't really know what they've been doing around town, but that's the brothers' mission now. They just want to kill anybody and everybody that's evil. So they kill them. Smecker comes in, and he's baffled. Because at this point, like, their theory about the mob war doesn't make sense because of the two extra dead guys. And they also have bullets that crisscrossed. Because it turns out, like, Rocco was shooting the guys, and he shoots, straight, and then he crosses his arms, and just shoots two holes into the wall on each side. Well, as they're sitting there, like, the rest of the cops are like, yeah, that scene at the diner. So Smacker realizes they're connected, but he doesn't know how. So he's frustrated. He's losing his mind. Well, now Rocco is obviously the system. He's the point man now. He tells them about just this cleaner that he worked with one night who murdered a whole family like he was ordering a pizza. That's how he put it. So we're sitting there, and the brothers decide to go get him. They at this point, Jacobetta has hired a hitman called Il Duce, who they used to use, what his parents used to use back in the day for mob hits. But, basically he was an animal. He was scary. He wound up going to jail. He's been in jail for 20 years, and, he had some rules. He wouldn't kill women and children, but he was the best hitman that there ever was. Basically, he's a ghost story to the Italian mob. So Jacobetta manages to bribe off some people and get him out of jail, and he puts a hit out on Rocco, because he thinks Rocco is the one who's been committing all the murders, and he doesn't realize it's the two brothers. So the two brothers and Rocco, they go to kill this cleaner that Rocco is just terrified of. So they wind up just wiping out an entire room of Italian mobsters again, and including the cleaner. And when they walk outside, Il Duce's there ready for him, and it's just a firefight. Willem Dafoe, when he's breaking down the crime and how it happened, it was a firefight. Shoots his gun in the air. It's like, dude, you're an FBI agent. What the fuck are you doing? You can't just shoot your gun indiscriminately. But he does, and he's losing his mind trying to solve this crime. And so the brothers are in the shootout with Il Duce. They wind up shooting. Everybody gets shot. Let's just put it that way. Murphy gets shot. Connor gets shot. Rocco gets his finger shot off. Il Duce takes a shot. And everybody scatters, right? So as they're scattering, they spray ammonia on the blood that gets on the porch. And it comes back. We're looking at Smecker as he's trying to figure it out. And the techs are like, we can't figure it out. There's some kind of variable we're not accounting for. So Smecker takes it just puts the blood on his finger, smells it, and is like, there's ammonia! And he just has a complete mental breakdown. That's it. Like, he's lost it. He's like, I've never seen anything like this in my fucking life! And he's screaming, cussing, as he falls on the ground because he's just throwing a fit and just pounding, kicking the ground. He finds Rocco's finger. He doesn't tell anybody he finds it. He just puts it in his pocket. He's working from home. Scans the fingerprint. And we realize, okay, it's Rocco. So he knows it's Rocco. He's a smart guy. He figures it out. He remembers Rocco bringing the brothers their clothes while they were in jail, and he puts it all together. We also cut to the brothers who are, trying to recover from their wounds. The iron that, like Rocco just miraculously grabbed. They use that to cauterize their wounds. There's a whole montage of them just like holding each other, like biting down on cloth and pulling each other's hair to stop things. And, they burn Rocco's finger to cut it off. And, so Smecker, the next morning, he wakes up, goes to a bar. He's been drinking all night. He stumped, because he feels guilty about doing what he's supposed to do because he knows the brothers are actually good guys. So he stumbles into a church where the brothers happen to be because they always go to their morning prayer. Well, Rocco, who was waiting in the car, saw Smecker walk in. Smecker goes into the confessional booth. He's there. Priest shows up. Rocco gets behind the priest, and basically he's got a gun to the priest's head. Connor had seen Rocco go in there, so Connor follows behind. He's got a gun to Rocco's head. So Connor's got a gun to Rocco, who's got a gun to the priest, who's talking to Smecker, who is basically saying, hey, how am I supposed to do my job effectively because there's all this red tape, people get away with it. And the priest essentially tells him that the rules of God are higher than the rules of man. So basically he says exactly what Smecker needs to hear to work with the brothers instead of against the brothers. So the brothers get in contact with him, and that's when Smecker realizes that Il Duce was one guy, not six guys, because from his evidence, he just knew there were 6 guns that had been fired at the brothers. He thought it was 6 guys shooting at the 3 of them, not one guy with 6 guns. So he agrees to help track them down. They tell him that they're going to hit Papa Joe Iacovetta that night. So he does a little recon. He finds out about Il Duce, and then he finds out that basically the Iacovettas are ready for an attack. So they've got all their people there. So they actually catch the brothers trying to sneak into the basement, and they've got the brothers tied up, and I mean they're just beating them and trying to figure out like what's going on. They realize that Rocco's not really the brains. It's obviously the 2 brothers. They're tough. They're not going to talk. They're not going to really say why they're doing what they're doing. At this point, Smecker shows up dressed as a woman, prostitute, to get into the house. And I just don't know like why this guy was so, how hard up he was to get with a woman. But man, he's like, yeah, come on in. So he's sitting there, and when Smecker's in the bathroom, the wig falls off. The guy goes, what? And Smecker just shoots him. And then as that comes up with just these duck lips, just terrifying face that will haunt your nightmares. Ugh. So at this point now, Smecker he's realized, okay, I've gone too far, but he puts the wig back on. He goes out. Now he's just shooting the mobsters as he sees them. Well, at that point, Il Duce shows up, knocks him out. Because Il Duce, if you recall, wouldn't kill women and children. So Paul Smecker, being dressed up as a woman, saved him. Well, by this point, the brothers have broken out. They've killed 2 guys because, let me backtrack. Papa Joe had earlier decided when the brothers wouldn't talk, he walked in the room and he just kills Rocco right in front of him. So the brothers decide they're going to break out, right? So they get out of their chairs, out of their restraints. So the next guy that walks in, they kill him. And then they're standing over Rocco. And throughout the movie, whenever they had killed somebody, they had a family prayer that they said over them. So now with Rocco, they're saying it's a little more solemn, and because it was kind of badass when you heard it through the rest of the movie. But over Rocco, you're just like, oh, man. And as they're saying this prayer, Il Duce walks up behind them, and he hears the prayer, and he uncocks his gun, and he finishes the prayer. The twist is Il Duce was their dad. So, he was kind of on the same mission they were. That's why he was a hitman, because it allowed him to, kind of do his work. So it cuts to the trial of Papa Joe. He's in the court, And, it's got reporters sitting there like, oh, he's going to walk. He's just got all this charisma. There's not enough evidence against him. He's going to walk. Well, the brothers and El Duce, they walk in, take over the courtroom. They make everybody in the courtroom watch as they execute him in front of everybody after giving a speech about, hey, you do these things wrong, like murder, rape, steal. We're gonna come find you. You'll find it. You'll look behind you. We'll be there. You'll reap it. And they leave. And then it basically shows everybody running out. The two brothers are sitting there with their dad. They go, how far are we going to take this, Dad? And he just says, the real question is, do you have the Constitution to take this as far as it's needed? And then the movie cuts out. It goes to, they're interviewing a bunch of people on the streets about how they feel about the Saints. Because now they've been dubbed the Saints, right? And everybody in town has a different opinion, right? Like, some people are like, oh, you're giving them all this power, putting the camera in my face. You can't just go kill people. Some people are like, no, we need them in every major city, which is callback to something Rocco had said to them earlier. And it ends with a guy going, look, I'm trying to get busy. All right? I want to get busy too, because he's excited about it. So it ends with this, they're off hiding, obviously. And, the town is very torn about how they feel. And we don't find out what happens until the sequel, which takes place 9 years later, and we'll cover that another time. So thank you for watching. As always, have a nice day, have a nice evening, have a nice morning, whenever you're watching this, and I'll talk to you later.